Order this meeting for Monday, May 11th. Carl, can you give me a roll call, please?
Please respond by saying present. Councilmember Ronayne.
Present.
Remley.
Present.
Lunsman.
Present.
Reif.
Present.
Johnson.
Present.
Bunceness.
Present.
Olson.
Present.
Rux.
Present.
Mayor Schoeneman.
Present. Please stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First thing I'll do is ask for a motion to accept last week's minutes for meetings of May 1st, 2nd, and 4th.
Move to approve all three.
Second.
A motion from Johnson and a second from Rux. Carl, can I get a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Remley.
Aye.
Ronayne.
Aye.
Lunsman.
Aye.
Reif.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Bunceness.
Aye.
Olson.
Aye.
Rux.
Aye.
Mayor Schoeneman.
Aye, motion does carry. Move right along to the open forum. We've got one registered speaker here today, Mr. Jim Keeler. Jim, if you could make your way to the podium, and then there's a little microphone that sits on there. Make sure that the green LED light is turned on so that we can hear you.
Okay. It appears that it is.
And you should be in good shape. People on TV will be happy to see you.
I'm sure they will.
Floor is yours.
I'm here because I'd like to speak. I spoke with Travis the other day and just visiting with Rob here a little bit, but I'm quite furious. You know, the beef plant, when it breaks out in Sioux Falls, they tell us, oh boy, we've got everything covered. We're doing a great job out here and it's not going to happen here. I think everybody would agree with that. That's kind of what the paper said. I wasn't watching it, but I've watched, you know, I check the website of the Department of Health every day to see it grow, and given this here, the input of the stuff. But anyway, I know there's been discussions of some places in Sioux Falls, they shut down the pork plant. I'm not a proponent of that. I respect the beef plant. I respect the workers there. All they want to do is work. And I understand that, and I'm fine with it. But I think that Demkota Beef has some responsibility to us, the citizens of Aberdeen and the surrounding area. Our explosion is coming from the beef plant. And speaking, you know, I hear a lot of it's because of their communal lifestyle. Okay, I accept that. They're here to work. I can do that. A lot of them don't speak English, don't understand things. But I think we ought to approach Demkota. And whether the city, I'm not so sure who owns the Aberdeen Civic Arena, but if these people that don't want to stay quarantined, why can't we get them? You know, whether we have to put up a hospital like New York did, the Jacob Javits Center, they had the National Guard fill it and had it taken care of and had 2,500 beds there. Why couldn't we go to the Civic Arena, and we have these people that have that problem of staying home and doing the stuff? Why can't we supply that? Whether we could get the National Guards to set up a temporary hospital, Demkota should pay for it. I think they could do it. The other thing is, in one of the earlier acts by the federal government, if you're an employer under 500 people, those people can take 2 weeks off with doctor's orders, or if they've got coronavirus, and get paid. Demkota would pay it, and then they would back it out of their Social Security, or their employment taxes to do that. Now, if they're over 500, which I believe they are, they should do it anyway. They've got a responsibility for us here, and I'm not opposed to them, but I see no reason why we couldn't communicate with them right away. And hey, if you've got people that are infected, let's put them in and quarantine them ourselves. It's not taken over, but you know, hey, what kind of clout does Demkota have over their employees? Well, quite frankly, if you get paid and they feed them and take care of them, and if we need healthcare workers for that, even if we have to import them from out of town, Demkota should pay for it. In New York City, they're talking nurses making $10,000 a week going over there to do it, but they're doing it. But I think Demkota should pay for all of it. you get them. I think they would be more than willing. I just visited with Attorney Rob Ronayne here. Quite frankly, I think they're very well set up for a huge class action lawsuit. I was in Duluth, Minnesota this afternoon. I had previously read that 71% of their deaths were in nursing homes or assisted living. A gal there I spoke to said no, it's up to 81%. All the deaths in St. Louis County and Duluth were all old folks and nursing home stuff. Well, if we hit one of the nursing homes here, if they happen to get, and wipe out this stuff, and I believe a lot of the deaths out of Sioux Falls were at nursing homes and other things. Well, if that continues to grow here, I think they're set up huge for huge lawsuits. I think they would cooperate and do it, but we need to put the pressure on whether the city, and I don't know if we still own the Civic Arena, the city, or it's sold to the schools, whatever, but it's not, nothing's being occupied. Why couldn't we put up a temporary, whether we want to call it a hospital or a quarantine center? And for those people that can't speak English and do this stuff or have communal living, take them right there when they test positive. They're going to get 3 square meals and they'd have some health care and whether you do some other stuff, but let's contain it that way. Let's not let it get out of hand. We don't need to shut the city down. Quite frankly, all over the country. So many of them have been, if we just would have protected the elderly people, we would have been way better off. We don't need to shut down all the economy and all that stuff. We don't need to shut down the beef plant. Now they're an essential business also. Why can't we contain it, do it that way? It's not martial law, Rob, but it's, hey, I think they'll cooperate. I think Demcota should, and I think somebody should, make that contact immediately, whether we could line up that and do the temporary housing for it or quarantine center, specifically for the people that can't speak English. I heard a story the other day, I know to be true, that one of them was getting a phone call that they're tested positive when they're in a taxi cab going to Walmart. Well, if they don't understand the English, and I respect them for work, don't get me wrong, but why can't we do something like that and have, let's be the city council, get on top of this, contact Demcota tonight, tell them they need to step up and take care of things.
Sure. Well, I would like to respond by just a few things because I've been in daily contact, literally daily contact with the management team out there. And the reason that their numbers are high is not because, well, it probably is to some extent that they've got a higher ratio than the rest of us, but it is largely because of the increased testing out there. Every man, woman, and child that's an employee of the beef plant, as well as that's associated with them, can get a no questions asked test. The rest of us have to jump through hoops. It's a very, very narrow segment of the total population that can get a test. You've got to be both symptomatic and also be in a high-risk category. So we've opened up testing for them. I literally personally asked for additional testing so that we could take that matter head on. Now, it's important to notice we don't need a hospital for those people because they've got a 0% hospitalization rate. Of the 76 cases that have come from that place, 0 of them had any generally acute symptoms. They all had minor symptoms or no symptoms at all. And so I think that there's a broad matter of perception. We could do what other communities have done and just not have our meat processing plant employees take any tests whatsoever. That would have been the politically prudent thing to do so that we don't have to have these conversations. But I thought that we'd take this thing head on. The comorbidity rate of this thing is largely tied to obesity, diabetes, severe asthma, things that a hardworking person at a beef plant wouldn't generally have. But a third of the total cases have already returned to work fully functional. And I dispute that there's probably a large problem with people that are ignoring the quarantine orders. They certainly are enforcing their quarantine as far as work is concerned. And as far as the language barrier issue, I can attest to the fact that 100% of languages spoken at the Demcota beef processing plant have a direct supervisor that speaks that language, that funnels the messages from management on down the line. So just today, Kim Malsom-Risden, the South Dakota Department of Health Secretary, praised the efforts at Demcota. And I would concur. I think that they're doing a great job. Because of the nature of a lot of things, they've got a little bit of a higher rate, but primarily it's due to testing.
Travis, I'm okay. You kind of told me that on the phone the other day, and I understand. Maybe we're not hospitalizing, but are we quarantining and making sure they do? You'd mentioned the communal living the other day. Well, are there 3 or 4 families in one single residence? I heard from a real estate broker went to list a rental home, and 10 or 12 beef plant workers are sitting around drinking wine. Time off, I'm not saying that, but their beds or their mattresses were put up against the wall. But you can say about the testing, which I'm sure that's true. I mentioned today I was in Duluth. Duluth has had 92 cases and are almost all recovered. If you look at the South Dakota website, there's all kinds of places that do not have beef plants that continue to hardly have any. Some of these ones hardly have anything because they didn't have it. And most of the people have been responsive to do it. And whether it's hospitalization, but how about quarantining them? And you say the beef plant's doing a good job there, but then again, you don't know, and you told me yourself the language barrier problem with them, for other people. And so many of these people are asymptomatic, and I agree with almost everything you said about them to do this stuff, and most of the deaths are either elderly and have other issues. I understand that. I've read a lot myself. But I do think that somehow it's spreading way more than we're having. We're hearing the communal spread now to doing it, going to other places. If 60% or only 76 cases of the 127, that's a different deal. But why can't we get somewhere to have them or have the beef plant quarantine them? And it doesn't. When I say a hospital, it's really a quarantine area, to have it do it, but, to put it to a stop. Because if it goes to community spread, and of course, then they talk about gang immunity, but that's just going to continue to go, and we're put up with this stuff for how long? If we could nip it in the bud and put it stop, but our explosion has come from the beef plant. There's no doubt about it. We watching those numbers earlier, we had a few, local doctor was the first one, whatever had, and supposedly some people from Warner that were at the Old Style in Deadwood. But I just think something, whether we could get a quarantine issue to give them, to make sure, because these people are, most of them don't speak the language or the communal living, which you'd mentioned yourself. So if somebody's positive, if they go live with 15 people, how many get it? And do they even think it's serious? Because most of them are asymptomatic and stuff. It's not. When it spreads to other people, that's going to be the damage.
Councilman Ronayne, did you have something to add?
If I may, Mayor, first of all, I appreciate, Mayor, that you've been staying in touch with the folks out at Demcota. And I have not heard anecdotes like we have this evening from Mr. Keeler regarding people from Demcota not quarantining properly. Have you had any reassurance from the management at Demcota that those that have been diagnosed have in fact been quarantining?
Oh, well, they aren't allowed in the premises. They're told that they aren't going to be working until they're asymptomatic and prove asymptomatic. They do 2 different tests for symptoms every single day with every person in that facility. So, like I said, the South Dakota Department of Health has been on site numerous times since their first case. They have went through all the protocols that they're doing. They've been very active in all of those procedures. And I think that maybe the misperception that is really causing you some trouble is we can't just wish this thing goes away. All of our efforts to reduce the spread are essentially delaying the spread. There's a certain amount of spread that's inevitable when it comes to this virus and all viruses. There's a certain number of us that are potential carriers, and a percentage of those people are going to get it. So if the beef plant didn't exist, I think there's a percentage of this community that will get it regardless. And I think that the exacerbation of the appearance of the increase I showed you in the bottom right side of the chart literally corresponds with the increase in testing. So I don't think that it's made the problem worse. I actually just think that it's a bit of a numbers game, to be entirely honest with you. And then in comparison to a majority of places, we're in very, very good shape. And the places that were not in better shape then are just simply doing less testing. Councilman Wright?
I think the question Mr. Keeler has, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but he's not really asking if they're able to come to work. What he's asking is what happens when they're positive and they're in the community.
Sure.
And now, is that a question we can ask Demcota if they've given certain guidelines as to what to do?
Sure. Well, my understanding is that everybody that tests positive is given the very implicit instructions, be it employers, be it healthcare providers, to stay in their home, out of sight, out of reach of other people until until they're better. So I don't think that they would have gotten any different guidance. But I will be happy to look into that for you and find out if there's an issue with compliance. Everything would be hearsay.
Are they even gonna know? But the thing it is spread, the reason we shut down the world was so it wouldn't spread, and it would stay in specific areas. Or, as a virus, it eventually just goes away. Well, when we're handing it off to Rob, to Dave, to everybody else, and, going along all the here, no, it's gonna hang around a lot longer if we bring it down, and that's what I think everybody's trying to do, by shutting down the economy, is basically try to nip it
Shutting
in the
down the
bud.
economy was really a matter of protecting the hospital system. It was driving
Well-
down the, that was it. That was what everyone said from the beginning. There's
Well,
been no dispute about that.
There's some truth to that, that's for sure, yes.
Sure, and that's what we took, the action that we did to protect our local hospital system, and
Well, I'm not, trust me, I'm not criticizing for anything you've done, any of you, at this point. It's just, I'm more, can the beef plant do more? And, yes, they're not letting them come to work, but what are they doing then? Can they watch them a little closer, or can they do it, or can they
Sure.
put them up in an area that quarantine them? But anyway.
I'll definitely communicate with those people, as the management, that is, of the beef plant, as well as South Dakota Department of Health, and find out what is the protocol for that, and we'll take it from there. But I'll let you know kind of what the conversation yields. Jim.
Okay.
I
Good enough.
appreciate
Thank
you
you.
coming in tonight.
Yeah.
Move along to our consent calendar items. First, we've got just a single consent calendar item, which is an excavator license to Ryan DeWitt, Underground Solutions Incorporated. Could I get a motion to approve that consent calendar item?
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion from Rux and a second from Rife. Carl, can you give me a roll call vote on the consent calendar, please?
Councilmember Rux,
Aye.
Olson,
Aye.
Bunceness,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Rife,
Aye.
Lunsman,
Aye.
Ronayne,
Aye.
Remley,
Aye.
Mayor Shonneman.
Aye, motion does carry. Next, we've got new business. We've got discussion and possible first reading and passage of resolution number 200503R, extending ordinance 200405, known as COVID-19 Emergency Ordinance Number 3. Ron, are you with us?
I am, Mayor. Thank you. Councilman, this is the standard resolution that we've been passing to extend emergency ordinance number 3. The language is the exact same that you extended the last three resolutions. If you do not extend, then there would be an automatic repeal of emergency ordinance number 3 tomorrow, May 12th.
Move approval.
David.
Got a motion from Councilman Bunceness for approval. Do we have a second?
Second.
And a second from Councilman Ronayne. I prepared a fact sheet for all of you, and I assume that you've probably seen it by now. That was in response to side conversation in the topic last week that I had with Councilman Olson, in which I said that I'd provide some information, and I figured I may as well be transparent and provide it to all. So we could definitely run through some of those things, but I think that our community has done a very good job despite the perception that we've got a bit of an increase, but it really corresponds with our broad additional testing almost to the day, and you can see with the lag time how that's affected things within our county. But we've done a very good job, and I want to commend the people of this community who have taken the responsibility to prevent themselves from getting the illness, which is ultimately what we are all responsible to do. I also do want to commend, as the South Dakota Secretary of Department of Health and the governor did today, the efforts of DEMCODA. I think that they've gotten a black eye in all of this, and it was largely due to the increased testing. Those guys have tested a lot of asymptomatic and very lightly symptomatic people that otherwise wouldn't have been tested in any other circumstance. So it's created the perception that they've got a very, very large problem, and I think that their problem is managed as best that it can be, considering all factors given their efforts in working with the Department of Health. So we've got a motion and a second. Does anyone else have anything to add on the topic of the emergency ordinance number 3?
Just a question, Mayor. This graph here is active cases, bottom right-hand corner.
No, that's our cumulative total of all cases to date.
All cases. I'm sorry, that That's what I understood also. I just said it wrong. So do you have a graph of the number of tests that have been given in the county
I don't.
from
The reason-
April?
The reason I don't is because that number is not accurately kept. So there's 6 testing facilities currently that test Brown County cases. We started with 2, the South Dakota Department of Health, and then 1 overflow laboratory, which was a private lab outside of state. And then somewhere along the line, Avera and Sanford began to do their own tests. Avera began to push their overflow volume to a Minnesota clinic, and then a private clinic began to take tests here, which sends them to Florida. So we've got 6 laboratories taking tests, but they don't all report their negatives. So the negatives come every single day like clockwork from the South Dakota Department of Health, but the South Dakota Department of Health doesn't have access to everyone else's negative quantities, if that makes sense.
So do they have just the total number of tests that have been given, or their
No,
their
they
testing?
only have the tests for sure. They've got the negative tests that the South Dakota Department of Health has processed. This overflow lab that they work directly with pretty regularly sends tests, but the negatives do not necessarily come from those other sources.
So Avera and Sanford do not keep track of their numbers.
They probably do, but they don't consistently wind up on the website. And that's from a conversation that I had with the South Dakota Department of Health just today. In fact, I wanted to double check on that to see the validity of the negative tests that are listed on the site. I too thought that would be a good metric to include, and it's probably not meaningless, but it doesn't represent all of the negative tests that have been taken in the county.
Well, I think what you would find, I mean, I don't know what you'd find, but it would at least tell us what the increase in testing was. I mean, just saying that governor announces additional testing doesn't mean anything. What are the numbers?
I've kept the numbers statewide, just not for Brown County on a monthly basis. So
Well, and I also looked at the Fed, Minnesota Fed put out numbers up to April 29th, I believe it was. And there appeared, I'll take a look at it again, but there appeared not to be any increase in testing. It was basically flatlined since the end of March. That's statewide now. That's not the county of Brown, so I understand that. But
Sure.
So I'm
Well,
just trying to
today,
get
for
a picture
instance-
of what really is going on here.
Sure. Well, today, for instance, there was 584 tests produced, or excuse me, 594 tests. The capacity of the entire system in South Dakota had begun with 180 tests total. So there's at least 4 times, or nearly 4 times, what was even possible to have produced in the early days of this thing, just today.
Okay, well, I'll take a look at the Minnesota Fed again, and if that number is updated, I'll send that graph out, and maybe that paints a picture too.
Okay, sounds great. Does anyone else have anything to add before we take a vote on extending this resolution?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir, Mr. Olson, Councilman Olson.
I'm interested as Mr. Busness is also that if we knew the number of tests that were being given in Brown County, we could compare that to the number of positives, and that percentage would then give us something to watch if things are going up compared to the tests that are being given or not. I also think Mr. Keeler had some very interesting suggestions, and so I'm wondering what kind of a plan do we have in place? We really haven't discussed that. I understand that the beef plant, those cases are kind of segregated out there, but what if all of a sudden we have 25 or 30 in the city that aren't related to the beef plant? Do we have a plan of what we're going to do? I don't think we do. I think we should. And are we going to have another phase of this ordinance? And what will that phase look like? we've not had those discussions.
Councilman Rife has something to add.
Yeah, I think it's important for all of us to stay in contact with our local hospitals. This morning, I reached out to Todd Forkel and Ashley Erickson to get their feedback. And my question mainly surrounds around, are you overwhelmed? Can you handle the amount of people that you have in your hospitals? Because initially, as you remember, the flattening the curve wasn't necessarily to say less people are going to get sick. It's basically to say less people are going to get sick at the same time and overwhelm our hospitals. And currently, I got a range. They due to some privacy issues, they didn't want to tell me exactly how many people are in the hospital today. But the range is 0 to 3. And compared to what their maximum capacity is, they felt very comfortable that even with the increased numbers of positive cases, that we're not going to overwhelm our healthcare system. Now, having said that, to refer to what Councilman Olson talked about a plan, I think if we have a plan, I think we need to include the hospitals, and I think we need to have a number that they start to sound the alarm at in terms of hospitalizations. And I think it's a moving target potentially, but weekly, when we have this discussion, I would be interested in hearing from either Ashley Erickson or from Todd Forkel to add to our discussion.
That's a good point, because that's a metric that's probably better than the total number of tests in the first place. Hospitalizations represent the acute tests, or the acute cases. So if we've got 3 or 2 or 1 current acute cases in Brown County, it's almost like that was what we're trying to do, is protect our hospital system, make sure that they aren't overwhelmed, make sure that they aren't in the terrible position of having to choose who lives and who dies. Those were the discussions that we had at the beginning of this. Councilman Rux.
I agree with that. As I was sitting there thinking today, some people ask some questions. It's, you kind of watch your active cases, but who's hospitalized? But then it gets you to thinking, at what point do we have to take some action to keep from overwhelming the hospital system? And that's really a number that I think the hospitals are going to have to kind of give us. If we get to, let's say, 40% knowing there's a 2-week lag time, or 50% knowing there's a 2-week lag time. And when I talked to Ashley on Friday, they didn't have anyone in their hospital at that time due to COVID-19. But I think that the whole point is not to overwhelm the system, but we don't have a number where they are comfortable saying, we can maintain this, but if, let's say, we do get those spikes in hospitalizations, at what point do we need to start taking some action? Or, thinking about what we need to do based on what their numbers are doing. So, like I say, I agree, we need information. I liked it when they were on here, just because you're getting them from the medical standpoint. And this virus information is changing all the time. And we're getting more information about it. We're getting more accurate information. And to have that update from, hey, this is what we're seeing, this is what we're not seeing, I think is important.
Thank you. Anything else before we take our voice vote?
Yeah, I guess, I'd like to just add that, I understand where everyone's coming from, and believe me, I understand small business. But the people that have sacrificed the most in their life are the people that are continuing to sacrifice the most, and that's the people that are over 60, 70 years old. Those people are still, if they're paying attention, are still the ones that are restricted in whatever they do. And I have at least 3 family members that are in that category. So just remember that, the people that have sacrificed the most in their life, they've come through the tough times of this century, last century, are the ones that are continuing to sacrifice for this community, state, and nation.
Thank you, Dave. Carl, give me a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Remley,
Aye.
Ronayne,
Aye.
Lunsman,
Aye.
Rife,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Bunceness,
Aye.
Olson,
Aye.
Rux,
Aye.
Mayor Shoneman.
Aye, motion does carry. Next, we've got the discussion regarding placing a charter amendment ordinance on the November 2020 ballot. Ron, are you prepared to speak on that one?
Yes, Mayor, thank you. The Charter Revision Subcommittee, with the current members, Councilman Bunces and Councilman Ronayne, are in the process of trying to figure out the timing to place a proposed charter amendment ordinance before the council. We wanted to come to you one last time with a proposal that would look at putting that on the council agenda for first reading on June 8th of 2020. And again, the timing would be such that it would allow for passage of the ordinance and then an election at the November 3rd, 2020 general election on whether the community, whether the voters of Aberdeen wanted to amend the city charter. So again, the purpose of this discussion is just to find out from the council if this is an acceptable timeline. After June 8th, 2020, things start getting a little tighter. There are certain windows in which this needs to be adopted. So I just wanted to make sure that the council was aware. This process had started over a year ago, frankly. And so we have some newer members of the council, at least members of the council who weren't there at the time that we started this process. We have had a work session, a public hearing on this, and unless we hear otherwise, I think the Charter Revision Subcommittee is prepared to go ahead and place this on the council agenda for a possible first reading of the ordinance on June 8th, 2020.
Ron, when do the ballots need information in order to be printed for a November 2020 election?
Along with the council action request was a timeline for the election on the ordinance proposing the amendment. And that timeline shows that the ballots language is provided to the auditor as of July, proofs are returned, and then the final language is certified on August 4th. And we start looking now at absentee voting windows. So we'd have to have the official ballot printed and ready by, it appears to be September 18th.
So the September 18th, where it says official ballots available, they print them presumably sometime just before that.
Right. Presumably you see that we have the August 4th, 20th date for final language certified by the finance officer. And you remember for the general election, we might have constitutional initiatives, constitutional referenda. We'll have obviously the general election candidates. So there will be a lot going on with that particular ballot. And the charter amendment municipal election would have to be fit in there. And so it'll pose a little bit of a challenge for printing. And that's why we're looking at final ballot language certification in August and then printing sometime prior to September 18th.
Thank you, Ron. Does anyone have any questions as it relates to that timeline, or were you going to get into the meat of the issue, Ron?
No, just on the timeline is really what we were talking about. I don't know if we're at the time that this comes before the council for first reading. I imagine that if there's any substantive discussions to be had, that would be the time for this council to have for purposes of voting on first reading.
Sounds good. Does anyone have any questions, or else I'll take a motion to approve the timeline as listed in our packets.
Move to approve.
Moved.
Got a motion from Bunces and a second from Johnson. I guess I'll just shuffle you. Someone say something? Carl, give me a roll call vote.
Councilmember Rux,
Aye.
Olson,
Aye.
Bunceness,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Reif,
Aye.
Lunsman,
Aye.
Remley,
Aye.
Ronayne,
Aye.
Mayor Shoneman.
Aye, motion does carry. Next, we've got the request consent to allow the Aberdeen Police Department and Fire Department to provide a police and fire escorted procession on May 17th, 2020 For the Aberdeen Central High School graduating senior class of 2020, possible approval to allow that to all occur. City manager acknowledges that this administrative action is under his charge, but would like to get a vote from the council on the matter. Dave, are you going to say something about that?
I'll move it.
I'll second.
A motion from Bunceness and a second from Rux.
All right, thank you. So Aberdeen community members have approached us and asked us if this would be something we'd be willing to facilitate. In meeting with the fire chief and myself and our staff, we determined that this is something we'd be willing to do, be happy to do, and we can do it safely. We attached a route. You have the time, it'd be graduation day. It's on a Sunday at 5 p.m. We think town traffic, business traffic will be minimal, so we can easily control the traffic in this route. The school's working with us a little bit to put this together. If you look on the logistics side of this, there will be no specific or designated place people will go to be able to view this. And we're encouraging social distancing and non-congregation for this. There could be one correction. There could be a minimal expense. We plan on using people that are on duty that day. However, on the police department side, we could hire back an officer or two, so it would be minimal expense. But I just want to make that correction. Any questions?
No, that sounds great. And go ahead.
I have a question.
Yes.
Chief, I think you said that the school is. I wasn't convinced that they were full in, or are they full in?
They're full in. It'll be our staff coordinating this. From the time, if you approve this tonight, I'm gonna send out a plan. I have a release. Basically, we're gonna send this out to the parent and student. There's gonna be a sign-up phase. So the school's helping us put together the message. However, they're not gonna be in the parking lot coordinating this. It's gonna be our staff.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
I'd like to acknowledge both Carol Summers as well as Patty Marshall, who both independently approached me with that idea, and I connected those two, and they've kind of spearheaded the effort, to my knowledge. So thanks, Lynn. Thanks to you two ladies for the wonderful idea. Carl, give me a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Remley,
Aye.
Ronayne,
Aye.
Lunsman,
Aye.
Reif,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Bunceness,
Aye.
Olson,
Aye.
Rux,
Aye.
Mayor Shoneman.
Aye, motion does carry. Next, we've got the purchase of a 200 kilowatt generator for the utility sewer department. Possible approval to purchase a Caterpillar 480V generator from Butler Machinery in the amount of $66,105. Robin, are you prepared to tell us about the generator?
Sure. Due to recent increase in flows in the wastewater system, we do have a need to upgrade some pumps at our Riverside lift, and that handles the flow from a good share of the east side of town. Without it operating at full efficiency, we're gonna see restrictions in what we can do for growth in the future. So this is a future thing. We also need to make sure that we're able to handle emergency power. If we have a power outage, we have to have that generator operational. There's probably less than a half an hour time that we have to respond. So the generator is imperative for us to continue proper operation. So we're asking for the purchase of this particular generator, and we'll put the existing generator into operation in another part of the system.
Move to approve.
Move approval.
Okay, who is the second?
Olson.
Got a motion from Ronayne and a second from Councilman Olson. Carl, give me a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Rux,
Aye.
Olson,
Aye.
Bunceness,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Reif,
Aye.
Lunsman,
Aye.
Remley,
Aye.
Ronayne,
Aye.
Mayor Shoneman.
Aye, motion does carry. Next, we've got the change order payment on AIP 3-46-00140 2019 for Reedy Construction, in the change order number 1, adjust the quantities on items to decrease in contract for the amount of $209,805. Payment number 1, work on taxiway improvements, Reedy Construction, to the amount of $115,909. Possible approval and authorization for the city manager to sign the change order decrease in the contract amount and to make that other payment. Rich, are you with us?
I am here. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Okay, so thank you. Good evening. Yeah, the decrease in the amount is due to some quantities that we changed out. We had actually a lot of asphalt on the connecting taxiway, the new taxiway Alpha. We were able to cut some of that out and replace that with concrete. So that's what this decrease is for. And then taxiway improvements, that is Reedy's cost for some materials that they've already moved on site. We should see some dirt being moved maybe toward the end of this week, but we've got quite a few materials on site.
Thank you, Rich. Can I get a motion to make those payments and changes?
Move to approve the change order and payment.
Second.
Got a motion from Johnson and a second from Rux. Carl, can you give me a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Remley,
Aye.
Ronayne,
Aye.
Lunsman,
Aye.
Reif,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Bunceness,
Aye.
Olson,
Aye.
Rux,
Aye.
Mayor Shoneman.
Aye, motion does carry. Next, we've got payment request for the work on airport projects 21, payment 21 in the amount of, to Helms and Associates, $21,268.25. We've got payment 19 for taxiway C, also to Helms and Associates, $11,488.18, and possible payment 7, also to Helms and Associates for the aviation apron in the amount of $11,470.09. I'd like to get a motion to make, or actually, Rich, why don't you tell us about those payments first?
Okay, yep. Payment 21, that is continuing work on the master plan airport layout plan project. That's moving along at a good pace. Payment number 19 for taxiway Charlie is engineering costs by Helms. And then payment number 7 on the aviation apron. This was a project that we had bumped out to 2021 and 22, 2022 and 2023. And we had submitted an application for supplemental funding. Last week, we were given notice that we were selected for a $5 million grant with no contribution from the city. So we're moving this project up to the front burner. Helms has done some more work. This project's about 80% complete, and we're hoping to bid this project out probably in about 2 to 3 months.
Move all three.
Second.
Got a motion from Johnson and a second from Rux to make those 3 payments. Carl, can I get
Just a question. Rich, when was the last time the federal government gave us a grant with no matching city contribution?
Well, it hasn't been in my lifetime here.
We applied
for it 2 years ago when this supplemental funding came available, but we were not selected. Mobridge, however, got selected to completely rebuild their runway taxiway system.
Because there were some funny looks here, like, have we ever heard of that? I know I've never heard of it, so good work.
Yeah, keep signing up for those, Rich.
Okay, will do.
I had a conversation with FAA director from our region, Steve Hoogerhide, the other day, and he said that you're a pleasure to work with. So congratulations on that. Keep up the good work out there, Rich. Got a motion.
Thank you, Mayor.
Johnson and a second from Rux. Could I get a roll call vote? Carl.
Councilmember Rux,
Aye.
Olson,
Aye.
Bunceness,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Reif,
Aye.
Lunsman,
Aye.
Ronayne,
Aye.
Remley,
Aye.
Mayor Shoneman.
Aye, motion does carry. Next, we've got our list of bills as seen in the last page of our packet. Can I get a motion to pay the bills for May 11th?
Move approval.
Second.
A motion from Rux and a second from Councilman Reif. Does anyone have any questions? There's been no additions since. Otherwise, Carl, give me a roll call vote on the bills, please.
Councilmember Remley,
Aye.
Ronayne,
Abstain.
Lunsman,
Aye.
Reif,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Bunceness,
Abstain.
Olson,
Olson will abstain on one payment for reimbursement to Donna Olson, and I will vote aye on all other bills.
Rux,
Aye.
Mayor Shoneman.
Aye, motion does carry. Next, we've got the approval of the payroll for the pay period April 26th through May 9th, and for the city's share of Social Security, old age, survivor's insurance, retirement, health, and life insurance. Can I get a motion to make the payroll?
Moved.
Second.
A motion from Ronayne and a second from Johnson on payroll. Carl, give me a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Rux,
Aye.
Olson,
Aye.
Bunceness,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Reif,
Aye.
Lunsman,
Aye.
Ronayne,
Aye.
Remley,
Aye.
Mayor Shonneman.
Aye, motion does carry. Next, we've got the city manager's report. Lynn, tell us what you've got.
Thank you, Mayor Schotterman. I only have one item. The city attorney would like to give an update on his research concerning city council meeting rules and procedures at this time. Thank you, Lynn. Council members, I had sent out an email just shortly before tonight's meeting, just letting you know that I had been doing a little work on Councilman Ronayne's request last week that the council consider adopting meeting rules or procedures to simplify Robert's Rules of Order. I'm going to ask that this be an agenda discussion item for next week, so this council can give me more guidance on what you're looking for a possible set of rules or procedures. Just to make sure you check your emails, I did send you rules and procedures from other municipalities, including the city of Brookings, Rapid City, Sioux Falls, and Charlottesville, Virginia. And Lynn had also provided me with a Minnesota handbook for mayors that he thought would have been very useful back in his days in Hermantown. So I just wanted the council to make sure that you take a look at these and consider what direction you want to give me next week as we look at possibly a set of meeting rules or procedures. I know that this can be big or small, depending on how the council wants it. If you're looking at a comprehensive thing that adopts lots of policies and procedures, or if you're looking at something that's more narrow and geared towards basically just meeting rules themselves. So I just wanted to make sure that you were aware of that. Likewise, I'm going to add another item. I did send out to the council on last Wednesday a timeline showing the when you would need to, if you were going to look at passing a COVID emergency ordinance number 4, what that timeline would be, starting with if we went with regular meetings, no special meetings, just regular meetings. And I just wanted to make sure that the council had seen that timeline as well, and if there were any questions. Otherwise, that's my report for tonight.
What does this have to be an ordinance, or to what form does it take when a person establishes rules to follow in a meeting?
For meeting rules and procedures, Mayor, you would not need to adopt it by ordinance. The council has adopted Robert's Rules of Order, but Robert's Rules of Orders always allow groups to modify as they would find suitable for their conduct of their meetings. So you would not need to adopt any formal resolution or ordinance. You could do this by approval of a motion.
Thank you. Does anyone else have anything to add before we adjourn? Councilman Ronayne.
Thank you, Mayor. You know, I guess I do have a question for the city manager. I've received a number of emails and phone calls the last week or so regarding various businesses that at least citizens have thought have not been in compliance with our COVID-19 ordinance as modified by the resolution. I'm curious if the city manager could let us know what efforts the city has been making to enforce that ordinance. Is that being done through through the police department? Is that being done through others in the city?
Yes, I can answer that question at this time. Actually, we put it on our website. In addition, it went to the police department, it went to the fire department, as well as I did a workup summary sheet of the ordinance so it would be easier to read. And it also went to the chamber, it went to the Development Corporation, it also went to the Visitors Promotion Bureau. I tried to distribute it as many places as I could. I also got some private calls where these individuals I provided to them, and I told them if in fact they wanted to provide it to others, they could. And so
I tried to distribute as much as I could. But keep in mind, I also provided you a copy of a summary sheet because most people don't care to read ordinances. And the summary sheet, I think, did a good job of the explanation of what the requirements of the ordinance actually were. I don't mean to date myself, but Councilor Rux was talking about when was the last time that the federal government gave out free money without any attachments? That was the 1980s, and it was called federal revenue sharing.
And Lynn, I appreciate the workup, as you put it, that you put together, and I do think that was helpful. To whom would you want citizens to direct complaints if they believe businesses are not complying?
I apologize, I didn't hear the later part of your statement.
Let me try it again then. To whom would you like citizens to report businesses that they do not believe are in compliance?
Rob, can I handle that for you? I'm sorry. Lynn and I have had those conversations, and what we ask citizens to do is if they believe that they see someone who is not in compliance with the ordinance or the resolution, then they should contact our police department. And Chief McNeil can confirm that what will happen typically is an officer will do an investigation, and if they do see something that they believe is a violation, they will speak with the person. Typically, the only time we've had to do it so far is with businesses. And we can tell you that 100% of the businesses comply immediately once they're made aware that they might be in violation.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I'd been contacted by probably better than a half dozen people, and I'd always directed them along to the police department, and I've understood that they've followed up with it in particular, and businesses wound up taking it very seriously. Anything else before we adjourn? Otherwise, I'll take a motion to adjourn, please.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Got a motion from Johnson and a second from Councilman Rife. Carl, last roll call vote of the night.
Councilmember Remley,
Aye.
Ronayne,
Aye.
Lunsman,
Aye.
Rife,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Bunceness,
Aye.
Olson,
Aye.
Rux,
Aye.
Mayor Shonneman.
Aye, motion passes. We are adjourned. Thank you very much.